Good evening, all. Dr. James Lani here, and thank you all for joining. And let me just move this back a little bit here. And tonight we're going to be talking about results, discussion chapter, a little bit of editing, a little bit of defense prep. And so I presume that all of you that are listening are towards the latter part. So a lot of people are in the, intro lit and methodology. If you're in the methodology, we're going to talk about results and discussion chapter, but maybe I can just say a few things about that. So, your research questions are critical. Let's start there, okay? Research questions need to be stated clearly in statistical language, or if you're doing qualitative, it needs to be clearly articulated, okay? The methodology in your chapter 3, okay, needs to clearly tell the reader, your committee, how you're going to examine those research questions. So in your methodology, you're really foreshadowing the results chapter. And it's not going to hurt, since this presentation is about the results and discussion chapter, to kind of see what the kinds of things that you're going to need, and perhaps hiring companies like us to facilitate a clear methodology to be able to get decent, clear results and discussion. So, okay, so I'm going to move on through the results. And we're going to start, basically, you're either presenting quantitative results or qualitative results. We're going to talk about the quantitative first. So, and this applies to most people. My experience is that a vast majority of people are doing quantitative dissertations, which I personally think is good to the extent that it really expedites the process. We could knock out quantitative results pretty quickly. So basically 3 different pieces to this. One is conducting descriptive statistics. Descriptives, and I'll give examples of these things. I'm talking about the population or the sample, demographic information, as well as descriptives around the research variables, the conducting of the analyses, that is for each one of the research hypotheses, conducting the analyses and examining the assumptions to address those, and then a summary of, what the heck you found. Life is not that complicated here. We're doing descriptives, we're chewing through those analyses one at a time, and summarizing, okay? So let's keep it simple, all right, as we can. So, clean the data first. First things first. If you have missing data, you need to either impute the data, that is, look at the entire data set, and someone's missing an item in one variable, you need to figure out how to impute that variable so you don't lose the entire observation of the entire case, the participant, that is. You should look at conducting descriptives, frequency percentages, means, and standard deviations. What that's going to do is, if you enter data and instead of somebody who was 10, you put in 100, you're going to have a weird mean, and the range is going to be weird. So it's really helpful to conduct descriptives very quickly, and I can't tell you how many times in my earlier days, I don't know why it took me so long to learn it, but it did, went through all the analyses only to find, I had imputed, I entered the data wrong, frankly. I entered in 100 instead of 10. So I put in a 99 where it shouldn't have been there. So, conducting descriptives just glance over it. It's going to be helpful. Okay. You need to get rid of outliers. Well, why do I need to get rid of outliers? You need to get rid of outliers because it's going to pull your data in one way or the other. For example, if you're running regression, it's going to pull that regression line, that prediction line, in a way that's favorable or unfavorable, but in either way it's going to be an inaccurate reflection of what's actually what the vast majority of the data is intended to show. So you want to exclude those outliers. Okay, so give an example of an outlier. So an outlier, so let's just, as I was just stating, you're looking at IQ, okay, and you have people who have IQs between, let's just say, 90 and 135, okay, and you have someone who's incredibly bright at 100. You have John Stuart Mill, who's got 165 IQ. This person's an outlier. That is, they are, to use Tabachnik and Fidel's terms, 3.29 standard deviations away from the mean. So everybody in your sample, there's an average, let's just say, of a mean of 100 of IQ, but someone's got 160 IQ. They're not a representative person in that sample. So you want to exclude that person. That's what an outlier is. Okay. Someone else asked about, I'm nervous about what to expect during the oral defense. Can you provide some, yeah, we'll get to the defense part after. Okay. So we have, okay, impute missing data. You should just impute the means. That is to say, if you had a, if you asked someone their age, okay, and someone did not include the age, their age, in their survey, and you were using age to predict their engagement or something of this sort, okay, in their company, or, okay, so what the, you should just take the mean of the age and then literally use that mean and plug it in to that person's missing value. So, but there's more fancy ways of doing this, and multiple imputation is one of those ways. So in multiple imputation, it's using the entire data set to determine what that missing value should be. And in fact, if I can put a plug in, pun intended, our software will actually have a missing data multiple imputation function within the next month or so. So all I'm saying is everyone works hard to get the amount of participants that you've gotten. You don't want to lose one participant because they forgot one piece of data. We want a nice clean data set. Multiple imputation is one way to get at that. All right. Normality is typically with a lot of these inferential statistics like ANOVAs and t-tests and lots of other things, the data should look like a normal bell curve where 68% of the people, or majority of the people, let's call it roughly 70% of the people, are around that mean score, and then you have a few low-lying people and a few high-lying people. So normality is an important aspect of data cleaning. Alrighty, descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics describe who you have in the sample. That is to say, the descriptives around the demographics. It could be nominal level variables like gender or profession, that is the frequency percent of gender or of different professions. And then and we'll do that right now. So why don't we just type in what what department you were in, okay? So I'm in education, I'm in psychology, I'm in social work, I'm in business. And let's just see what we have here, okay? So everyone just type in what you have. Okay. And then we'll get the, so we'll just pick, okay, so I have, so what do I have here? All right, very active group right there, okay? So I have, Scrolling doesn't help quite a bit. Okay, so I have education, that's fine. So education, so, okay, so I see at the moment here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 education, I have 1 nutrition, there's 1, and then healthcare, let's see here, 1, 2, okay, 2 health, okay, so you got 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 1 military personnel, okay, 1 military, okay, Maria, I'm asking for the department, all right. And, okay, you should know what department you, okay, the first thing you need to do when you get here, you need to know what department you're in. All right, so let's just say we have 6 education, 1 nutrition, 3 healthcare, okay? That's our N is 10, okay? So you have 60% are education, 10% are nutrition, and 30% are healthcare. So that's one way to look at descriptives. If I asked you what your age is, I'm not going to ask you, and everyone told me their exact age, I'm going to then present with you with the average, mean, and standard deviation of your age. Okay. So that's basic demographic descriptives. But then you're going to have different descriptives around your variables of interest. For example, if everyone was taking a self-efficacy, that is your participants were taking a self-efficacy assessment, and their scores were from 0 to 10, okay, then everyone is going to have a score. So let's say out of the 10 people that we're talking about here, if I gave you a self-efficacy exam, then we're going to give you the average self-efficacy of the group. So these are the descriptives. Just lets people know what's going on here. Lets the reader know, we're dealing with educators, healthcare, and nutrition people, rather than perhaps other different disciplines. So it's also important in terms of how you could generalize. So if I only have educators and healthcare people, I can't necessarily generalize to business people. Or if I was dealing with one region of the country, I can't necessarily generalize to other parts of the country, other parts of the world. That's the descriptives. All righty. Here's an example of descriptives. We just talked about we could do it for gender or age group or education or discipline or anything else of the sort. This is a sample write-up. So this is, I'm sharing one research question or null hypothesis, and then a sample write-up around the examination of that research question and how a results paragraph should look with an appropriate APA-style table. So without reading the whole thing, essentially we're looking at organizational change readiness, differences by men and women. That's the research question. Does readiness differ by gender? You should reiterate the question to say, hey, we're looking at differences on readiness by gender. We're going to look at these assumptions. And then we're going to present the findings. The result, we're going to do an ANOVA or a t-test. We want to select the appropriate analysis. That is, the data plan needs to match up with the research question and level of measurement of the variables. We want to state what the findings of that analysis were, and then present the table that goes with that. No, I just want you to really kind of listen to what's happening here. The slides will be available on our site soon enough, but just try and get a flavor of what's happening here. By the way, you don't have to catch everything. Catch the part you can catch. The take-home message here is, for each quantitative hypothesis, you want to restate the hypothesis, you want to conduct the test with the associated assumptions, then you want to report the results of that test and those assumptions with a table or figure that makes sense. That's all I'm trying to present here. Okay. All right, qualitative. In these cases, certainly line number, all of the, so what are we doing here? We're trying to get, in a lot of these cases, lived experiences. Let's just say you're doing a phenomenological qualitative analysis. When you transcribe people's semi-structured interviews, you should line number everything. That's the first thing you should do. Then when you go to thematize or pull out themes from that narrative, you need to provide at least 3, is a good rule of thumb, 3 representative examples to say, I have a theme here. If one participant says one thing, it's not really a theme. You need a few excerpts to show, hey, there really is a pattern of a typical kind of response here. What's not always obvious in these things is that I speak about a CAP or inter-rater reliability. Once you've identified themes, you should have other, I'll say, novice raters or independent raters also see if they can identify those themes as well. Okay, and you do that with a kappa coefficient and a kappa analysis. There are other ways of doing qualitative analysis. Ground theory is another mode. So typically, most of you, and I guess this relates to the methodology or your methodological approach, typically people with respect to qualitative are doing either phenomenological, case study, or ground theory. And there's references. We can get emails, so I'll give you references around each of these things. The results in qualitative analysis should make sense to your next door neighbor. That's what I mean by lay reader. See? That know nothing about this. It should make sense of what's happening, what you've done. Here was a qualitative analysis that I did for my own dissertation. And in this example, what I was doing was we were looking at if there were themes of utterances that people spoke in a psychotherapy sessions, okay, based on where they were in their progress in terms of resolving a problem. So the idea was, hey, gosh, did they utter similar things? And we found several things. People downplayed negativity. People avoided responsibility. People had distancing language. Just anecdotally, I was on the way to work this morning, and I was pulled over by a cop because I was speeding. I hate to say it, but it's true. So the police officer said, he said, you know, I must give you a ticket. I said, no, you don't have to. He said, so he said, he thought about it. He thought I was being cocky when I really wasn't. I was just being precise. He said, you're right, I don't really have to. He said, he wasn't mad about it, but he understood that it was a choice. So anyway, avoiding responsibility, psychotherapy patients do that as well, and cops evidently. So there's lots of different themes that, getting back to the point here, there's lots of different themes that were obvious that had several excerpts that supported it that people consistently stated within a psychotherapy sessions. And then we looked at the kappa coefficients, or the reliability of those statements. So someone asked, hey, can you explain what a kappa inter-rater reliability is? Essentially, what a kappa coefficient is when we identify, let's just say, this is what happened. Me and colleagues sat around a kitchen table. We read through psychotherapy transcripts. We said, there were several people looked like they were downplaying negativity. So we pulled out that excerpt that we said, hey, in their utterances, in their conversation with the therapist, it appears as though they're downplaying negativity. But there were lots of other themes we saw throughout the transcripts. So what we did is we pulled out those excerpts on one page, all of the excerpts that dealt with all of the different themes or markers, and then we pulled out the names of the different themes. Then I had two independent raters read excerpt number 1 and say, hey, is body symptoms present or absent? Is downplaying negativity present or absent? And avoiding responsibility and so forth. The point is that there is and then I had a second independent rater do the same task. And what I found was sometimes they agreed, hey, that theme is present. Sometimes they agreed that theme was absent. And sometimes it was a mixed match, that sometimes they said it was present, and the other one thought it was absent, and so forth. So when they were, so inter-rater reliability, or the kappa, speaks to the level of agreement between two raters, essentially. I hope I answered the question. Okay. We should mention as well that the kappa calculation is part of the free membership. And so just heads up. Pardon. All right. This is an example of how one would calculate an inter-rater reliability. Two raters, they both agree. They can both agree that it's present in A. They can both agree that it's absent in D. Or one can say it's present, the other one says it's absent, or vice versa. That is, I'm referring to B and C. And then you can calculate the observed versus the expected agreement and calculate the kappa. And down in the note, you can see well, it doesn't really lay out, but you can look at Lani and Koch. You can see that there's different levels of agreement based on whether it's, whether that kappa coefficient is between 0 and 1. Okay. Summarizing the results, what you want to do is give them the highlights of the findings, be it the quantitative analysis or the qualitative analysis. You want them to walk away with some headlines. Give them a picture of what you found. They're not going to remember all of these numbers here. Let me go back. They're not going to remember that, okay? But what they might remember is, hey, you know what? Body symptoms, putting pieces together and noticing change were reliable findings, okay? So give them highlights that they can take home with them, okay? And, it should be understandable, okay? You have to make these things. Yeah, it is a technical document, but still a normal person should be able to read it and understand what the heck you did here. So make it comprehensible to the extent that you can. All right, and I'm willing to entertain other questions that you might have. There's not many questions, so either I'm confusing all of you, which I fear, or you just really are getting it, or I'm so concise and precise that you're understanding everything that I'm saying. My fear is that it's the former, though, and not the latter. So questions about anything regarding results, quantitative or qualitative, that you perhaps fear or that you've heard of others kind of going through. And while you're thinking about those, I will carry on here. All right, so great. So let's keep moving then. Discussion chapter. Okay. Basically, you want to do a few things. For each of these sections, the introduction, the lit review, results, and discussion, you want to introduce those chapters. That is, have it be the very last thing you write. So after you write the entire discussion chapter, summarize that, give it to them up top. Hey, my discussion chapter is going to do this. I'm going to restate support and non-support for the hypotheses. I'm going to talk about the practical and theoretical implications of my findings. I'm going to talk about the limitations of my study. I'm going to talk about future research and so forth. So you want to give the reader a framework of what's coming. All right. And then go ahead and do that. Here's support and non-support. Do these findings, did I find something completely novel, or do these things actually fit into the existing literature? What are the implications of these findings? Every study has got limitations. That's just the nature of studies. The best studies in the world, you have people who can make arguments about it. So talk about the way that you've sampled, limitations. You expected people to answer honestly. You weren't sure, this kind of business. Recommendations. The way I was taught was, hey, gosh, just imagine you had all the, money, time, and energy in the world. What would you do differently for future research? Okay. And then conclusions. Just kind of summarize and tell them, what was in that chapter. Okay. Okay. So Karen asked, is there an APA style on how to present tables and graphs? I don't believe that you can really use colors. So yeah, there's an APA, there's a green book, and it's called APA Findings, APA 6th edition Findings. That's going to give you a template of that. What else do we have here? How do you choose the number of participants in your quantitative method? Okay, so we can go back and take some of these questions. Well, let me come back to that. Let me finish the discussion, and then I'll drill through some of the method, since the majority of people are in the method. All right. So I'll come back to that, Juliana. Okay. Editing, and Karen, we're kind of touching on this. There has to be table of contents need to be in APA style. Tables of figures need to be in APA, and references need to match up between what's in the text and what's in the reference section. Levels of heading, several different levels of heads. Everything should be past tense once you get to the discussion chapter. References cross-checked. At the end of the day, retain an editor, of which Statistics Solutions is one, by the way. So retain an editor, and they're relatively inexpensive. So call us or email info@, and we'll give it the information. And dissertation defense. We had a question about that earlier. Miriam asked, I'm nervous about what to expect during the oral defense. listen, all of these things are anxiety-arousing situations. Why are they anxiety-arousing? They're anxiety-arousing because your fate hangs in the balance of these things. You haven't been through it before, and you may not have heard of good stories around it. What you can do is know the material. We can prep you, or others can prep you. What kind of questions are asked? You can ask your committee, what kinds of things might I expect? Do you have any questions now? So, for example, as opposed to being blown away, let me not be so dramatic. Instead of being surprised by questions during the defense, be it in the preliminary defense or final defense, you can kind of ask your committee, hey, do you have any immediate questions that I can help answer? Or things that you might be looking for further clarification on. So you have a little heads up prior to you going in there. All right. What else do we have here? And then talk to other students. Listen, take solace in the fact there's a lot of PhDs kicking around. People get through this, and you'll get through this. Understand what's been done. Lay out, practice it. Try and get a good night's sleep. Get a good night's sleep. And then go in there and do the best you can. One thing is, if you don't know the answer to the question, that means that you're a human being. If you knew every answer to every question, they wouldn't have you come in. So they're going to ask you things, and then you can say, good question. I don't know the answer, but I'm going to find out for you. And then go find out and email them. Okay. Be prepared. Get committee questions out of the way. Run through your PowerPoint. Okay. Relax to the extent you can relax. All right, so let's talk about other kinds of questions and answers. Let me go back to Juliana about choosing the number of participants in quantitative analysis. This is a very misunderstood topic. So your question is a good one. There's two ways to determine sample size. One way to determine sample size is to look at the entire population. Let's just say we're looking at 5th grade teachers. Say how many 5th grade teachers are there, and say, well, within some error rate or margin of error, we need X amount of 5th grade teachers. Okay, that's one way to get a sample size, but it is not the way that dissertations get a sample size. The other way to get a sample size, which is what dissertations want, is via a power analysis. What's a power analysis? A power analysis is looking at the type of statistical analysis you're conducting and determining the sample size based on that. It's one of the criteria. What is the analysis you're doing? And then it also looks at effect size and power, which is typically 0.80. And then from that, and you can, G-Power helps you do that. It's a free online tool. Our membership helps you identify, it has a narrative write-up around, hey, if I'm using a correlation, here's the desired sample size. Okay. Other questions we have here. No. Okay. Yep, we talked about that already. No. So, Karen, you say discussion should be written past tense. What about the methodology? Well, the methodology, since you've not conducted it, should be put in future tense. Right? I'm going to conduct this analysis. I am going to administer this test to these participants. So the methodology should be written in future tense, when you get to the discussion, you should change the entire document to past tense. Juliana, do we have to prove a point in our research? Can we suggest that the findings were inconclusive? Yeah, I mean, you know, what people want is a story. That's what people remember. So you can say that the hypotheses were partially supported. Okay? So they don't have to be a clear support or non-support. You can get at partial. This hypothesis was supported. This hypothesis was not supported, and so forth. All right. What else do we have going on here? Ron, what are some questions asked at a conference call with committee members to discuss methodology? Good question. So, why was this? How did you select this instrument? Well, this instrument had good reliability and validity. It was capturing the constructs of interest. Why did you choose that sample size? Well, I did a power analysis, and I came to this. Why did you choose that analysis? Well, the way the research question was phrased with the level of measurement. So just think about turning each of those sections. What are the bones of the methodology? Participants, instruments, procedure, data analysis plan. You can turn each of those paragraphs or the statements within those paragraphs into a question. Those are the kind of questions you can get. Arthur, what should you include in oral defense templates and PowerPoint? What should you include in your oral defense? Oral defense, I guess, a pre or a post. You want to lay out, the highlights. Again, think about it as telling a story. You want to lay out the highlights of what you're doing. I don't know if you're referring to the prelim or, so if it was a preliminary oral, then what you want to say is kind of, what's the significance and importance of the study? What are some of the perhaps highlights from the lit review? And then drill into why you need to conduct the study. That is the rationale for conducting it, and then get into the methodology as soon as you can. For the discussion chapter, you'll want to, go over the results, go over the implications of these things. What about the interview protocol? What about it? I mean, it should be clear enough, the protocol, that, again, that it's replicable, that you can repeat it in a similar fashion to your participants. Okay. Other questions? Okay. Okay, as 20 participant sample size is a rule of thumb for qualitative. No, for the sample size for qualitative, they're different based on case study, phenomenological, and grounded theory. I'm not quite sure what they are offhand. People talk about, saturation of the themes and so forth. I'm not sure 20 sounds a little high to me. What I see is somewhere between 5 and 12, somewhere in there. Okay, in SMR, you're predicting your analysis you will conduct. You predict the analysis you will predict. If that changes, you need to update the SMR for the IRB. To the extent you don't have to keep going back, I don't think, look, I mean, to me, the SMR is, do you have a good plan? I don't think you need to update them with every single change. If you change the test, the analysis, I don't think it needs to be changing every time. Just defer to your chairperson. Jason, do you need to pilot test a case study? I don't see that often. So the short answer is no. Okay, questions just rolling in. David, not sure about bracketing offhand. I would defer to my qualitative experts. Vicki, is there a time frame that the presentation should be held? The presentation, I'm not sure what you mean by time frame. I mean, I guess you're saying, you know, I get defer to my chairperson. You know, how long a presentation do you want? Some people want really short PowerPoint. Some people want really long PowerPoint presentations, and just see what they want. Charlene, will the next dissertation workshop be? Thank you, Charlene. So March 14th in Orlando, when it's good and cold and the rest of the country will be warm and toasty in Orlando, March the 14th. Okay. And Kendra, what is the best approach to doing your defense? We talked about it. Just you know, be prepared, practice. It's like anything else. And know that you're human and that you're going to be a little bit anxious prior to going in. You know, I mean, that just may be what happens. If you're not, that's great too. You know, obviously be as confident as you can, and confidence is when you've actually done it before and practiced it. So, all right, so we did talk about dissertation workshop, March 14th in Orlando. It's probably going to be just, you know, 4 hours or so. Okay? It's going to be a short workshop, but powerful, impactful, but without going the whole day long, and you can relax a little bit in Orlando. Oops. Hang on a second here. There we go. And let me scroll this down just a touch. So I want to put a plug in. I have a very seasoned, to everyone that's out there, I have a very seasoned team to help you walk through in a smooth fashion this consulting process. You know, as you said in the beginning, a lot of people in the beginning phases, it's a good time. So my pitch is, spend 30 minutes with us. It's free. Talk about the kind of things we can help with. I have a very smart team of people that can walk you through this. So one-to-one personalized consulting. You can connect. We're on a Facebook thing to get likes. And so connect with us through Facebook. Put us around, you know. You can email us or call us at any point. The 30-minute consultation is free. We have dissertation experts. You can connect with us through Twitter and LinkedIn. The calendars do fill up, so feel free to reserve your spot, okay, so you can get an appropriate turnaround time. The next webinar is January the 14th, 7 Secrets to Completing Your Dissertation in 1 year. They are pretty good secrets, and they come from many, well, 2 decades of experience and work with thousands of dissertation students. So I look forward to seeing everyone there. And I guess we'll just say, you know, thank you all for joining. Call us. We'll go back here. Oh, there you go. We'll call for a consultation. Again, it's free. Even to share where you're at. We can even help you refine your topic or get through sticky parts of the introduction or help figure out the flow or gaps in the literature in the lit review, or make sure that your methodology is clean and replicable. So we can help with lots of things all the way through. we edit it, we track changes, and you have somebody to hold your hand as we smoothly walk through this process. We're tenacious in helping people get through, and we'll be tenacious in helping you get through too. So I will say thank you all for your attention, and we'll see you soon. Okay. Good night, all.